our buddy from 247 Sports, Dog Post, everywhere, Rusty Mansell. Rusty, it's Christmas before Christmas for college football fans. It's National Signing Day.
Yeah, man. I mean, I think about this is my 13th one. I've been through some damn doozies now. I've been I remember covering Robert Kimdichie and trying to figure out where that dude was going to go.
Yeah.
So,
like the Quanjo brothers, like the one that committed to Auburn and then was like, God. Wait, no, I'm sorry. I blacked out. I'm in Alabama. Just crazy.
Hey, I covered Reuben Foster from the 9th grade on. So, yeah, I've been through it. I can tell you that.
Yeah, I played against him in the 8th grade. It still haunts my nightmares.
Yeah. I know a certain center at Auburn that was about to beat him to sleep in Skybar for trying to get other kids to commit to Alabama on a visit.
You know how he got found? That on his freshman year, he absolutely laid Isaiah Crowell out.
Really?
I'm telling you right now, that was the first kid I've ever seen that had 20 real offers as a freshman. Like Reuben KO'd Isaiah Crowell.
I'll never forget, Rusty, when I was at South Alabama, went to Carver. This is when I just had gotten in, and went there with one of the position coaches, and Del McGee, the head coach at Carver. Go up to Dell, and we're looking around. We got our player sheet, and Carver's loaded with players. I mean, Jarvis Jones. I mean, you're looking around. There's a ton of D1 guys. And we look, and there's this running back. And you know what they look like when they look like what they're supposed to. And we're like, who is that kid? And Del McGee looks at us, and he goes, Coach, he's a sophomore. You ain't got to worry about him. He's not going to South Alabama. It turned out it was Isaiah Crowell. But
he sent y'all down another aisle. He's like, you guys are on that aisle.
Yeah, he's like, you need to keep going. He's like, you may get him in a bounce back, something like that if it were to happen. But Rusty, I led the show with, I think we should have a signing day window and then a signing day deadline in February. I don't see the harm in letting a kid sign in September if he wants to. Then if the head coach leaves, takes another job, or gets fired, that scholarship is back open. You still have the February deadline. I get the hoopla around it. I get it's good for business. But I don't see what it would hurt. Am I crazy thinking that?
Here's what I would go. I've always suggested August 1st because here's two things it does. It makes a college quit the BS. Do you have a real offer or do you not have a real offer? And the kids that want to commit, it's like, look, I'm going to Auburn. I'm going to Georgia regardless. Those kids would sign. 70% of the kids wouldn't sign yet. And that's okay. Let's go ahead and knock those 7 or 8 that are going to those schools. And exactly what you just said, give them an out. If that head coach is leaving, you can have an out because I'm guarantee you it will pressure kids to quit a lot of their, shenanigans. Give me a top 12, all that stuff. I'm going to get in this school August the 1st, or I may not get in. So I like that. And do you have a real offer or not? You will find out come August 1st.
It helps. Go ahead.
Then you can enjoy your senior season. You can play football. You can enjoy your high school senior season knowing, look, I'm done. I'm wrapped. We'll play my ass off in my high school.
Exactly. And I think a lot more kids would sign than what even you think, not only just legacies or people like that, because of the transfer portal. I mean, spots are filling up. Yeah. I know they changed the rule where you can now sign more than 25 in the class, but you can't have more than 85 on the roster. And as long as that 85 number doesn't move, high school kids' spots are going to be taken. It's almost like the early bird gets the worm and the late bird.
I talked to a G5 coach this week, and he said, I've taught this guy 4 or 5 years in a row. Everybody here would know him. I mean, he's a good coach. And he said, look, Rusty, we're not recruiting high school right now. I need 7 guys that can freaking go right now. And he was calling and asking me about a kid that was, played high school in Georgia, what I thought about him character-wise, not play-wise, character-wise. And to me, it's just a sign of the times, man. They don't.
It is.
It's just pushing off these high school kids. We're not changing it, but I love the idea. I love that you said that. I think August 1st would be great. And then come back with a February window.
I'm with you. We'll just start a petition around. We'll see it. Rusty's got enough. Rusty's got enough pull to get it done. Charlie Baker at all, NCAA? No, I'm just kidding. But Rusty, obviously it's signing day. We do have the mix, obviously the transfer portal and the high school kids that are signing today. Georgia, we know you cover Georgia, but you cover all of it. Georgia right now, number 2 on 247 behind Alabama. When all is said and done, do you feel there's going to be some surprises today for Georgia? Typically, they're nothing but good surprises with the way Kirby Smart recruits. And do you think Georgia will end up, at the end of the day, with the number 1 recruiting class?
I've been doing this long enough to know that I shouldn't say this, but I don't think there's going to be any kind of chaos for Georgia today, which means they'll have 12 decommitments or something. But I think Georgia, I think today they're watching Daniel Harris is about to make his decision. It's a 4-star corner out of South Florida. I think he commits to Georgia. He was committed at one time, backed off. I think they get him back in the boat. The big one today really is Damon Wilson, the 5-star edge. And you take away Keon Keeley, who I think is number 1 in the country at that position. I think Damon Wilson's number 2. This was a head-to-head Georgia-Ohio State for 2 months. I'm talking haymakers from both of these schools on this kid. And I think Georgia is going to get him, and they really, really need some edge help. So that would be a big one. So tomorrow is Jordan Hall. And I think I always get the question. I like to go back and look, who do I think will be the highest drafted kid out of this class when we go back? Obviously, I'll be tweeting the ones I've gotten right over the years. I will not be tweeting the ones I've gotten wrong. Jalen Carter was the one I hit really quickly because I just knew he was different. But I think Jordan Hall, if Georgia gets him tomorrow, I think he has potential to be a very high NFL pick. I mean, you look what Georgia's done defensive line-wise. I've been around this kid. I mean, this kid loves freaking football. I saw him at a camp in July down in Naples, Florida. And, this kid had 50 offers. I'm like, what are you doing working out, for 3 days? Coach, I want to compete. I want to play. And when you get a mentality like that on a dude that big, ability to come through his hips, and he can unhinge, you know what that means, man. He can control a gap and those things. So I think Jordan Hall can be really, really special if Georgia were to land him. Right now, I think they are. Yeah,
and look, you have to have those kids to be able to win at the end of the day. Everybody's talented when you get down to this playoff. What's the difference? It's on the mental side. What did Yogi Berra say? 90% of sports is 100% mental. He may have said baseball, but sports in general.
I was never good at math.
Yeah, I was never. Right. Rusty, when you look at the top 10 right now on 247, you do have some of the same names you typically see in the top 10, but new head coaches. You look at what Mario Cristobal's doing at Miami, shoring up those tackle spots, getting those linemen in there. You look at Brian Kelly and LSU being able to get in there. And you kind of look on the periphery as well. Hugh Freeze taking the Auburn job. But with some of these new coaches getting in, Billy Napier has Ford at number 11. Who's really standing out to you on a coach that took over a job last year going into his first signing day with his new team?
I think Brian Kelly's the guy that you watch. He has a full cycle under him now. I think people that don't follow this day to day, and because they don't have the numbers of Georgia, Ohio, Texas, and California, I think Louisiana, man, they produce freaking dudes.
Yeah.
And when you go back and look at Louisiana Lafayette when Billy was there, they were recruiting in state and had, there's so many good players that just don't have the numbers population wise as others. So I'm very interested in how they finish. I think Hugh Freeze, in the short amount of time he's been at Auburn, I don't care if you have watched Auburn the last 3 years, they've got their ass whipped up front offensive.
Exactly.
Line. I mean, they've got whipped. And, what they're doing now, I think they're adding some really good key additions to the JUCO. Listen, I know Connor Lewis, a kid I've covered. He's about 45 minutes from my house and not going to make a ton of pub today, but I know his mentality. The kid just turned 17 years old. He's going to go in and play center at Auburn, to flip from Miami. I think Auburn, everybody looks on the perimeter with Hugh Freeze. You got to start up front, man.
Yep.
You got to start up front. And I think Auburn's really put a pretty good dent in the short time that Hugh Freeze has been there now. What's he known for? Scoring and throwing all over around the place. But you still got to be able to block dudes and move them in the red zone. And I think Auburn is a team I'm really, really interested in as we finish up this cycle. And not only this one, when that transfer portal opens again, January the 4th, 8th, what can Auburn do once they get a chance to breathe for a couple of weeks? Reset. How can they finish this class?
Definitely. It's going to be interesting to follow.
Yeah. Hey, Rusty, looking around the rest of the country, give us some names of some high school guys here who are maybe a little bit underrated on the ranking boards, but who you think can really go in and be stud ball players around the country.
Well, I don't know that I say he's underrated, but he doesn't get the pub. I think a kid named Cade McDonald at North Gwinnett High School in the Atlanta area. He's going to Ohio State, and he kind of slid under the radar for whatever reason. And I was on the show here previously for you guys, and I made the connection there. I watched Grady Jarrett work out in front of Rodney Garner one time, and Grady Jarrett's about 6'1.5", but he had all these stats. He had tackles for losses, all these things. I looked, and Rodney Garner looked at me and said, "This dude's going to be a hell of a player." Now, he wasn't going to sign him, but he's one of the best NFL tackles in the game.
Yeah.
I look at Cade McDonald, and he's a little bit short. He's a little heavy right now. He's probably 6'2". He's going to Ohio State at this Georgia metro area. They're going to get him in shape, knock 25 off of him. And he's got the same kind of tackles for loss. I think he's going to be great. A kid out of another kid named out of Newton County, Justin Benton. Dad played at Georgia. Dad played for the Rams for a little while. He's, again, a little undersized, 6'2" defensive tackle. I know Texas is flirting with him some. Houston now, Arkansas. You see these kids that pop up late, especially for me. from the state of Georgia. I just think they're going to be. I think there's a lot to those guys, and the mentality of that dog. Everybody says that dog, but this kid wants. You watch his tape. I want to talk to Buford. I'll give you an example. I want to talk to Buford High School. I said, "Who was the best player y'all played this year?" You know what they said? Justin Benton. We couldn't block that dude. And that tells me a lot. So there's those underrated 3-star guys. I'll tell you one for sure too for Georgia. Yasid Haynes, wide receiver out of Philadelphia. He got there Saturday. The word I got yesterday, those first two workouts and the first practice session he had, probably some pretty good news for the future at Georgia wide receiver with him early on.
Yeah.
You can't jump conclusions, but that's how it happens, man.
For sure,
it's not a science,
Why don't you send me that first kid's number? I'm gonna give him a call and see if maybe being a Michigan man sounds a little better to him, Rusty.
Yeah, y'all got y'all.
You know what? Michigan was involved. Michigan was involved with him, and kudos to Michigan and Ohio State because they got in down here. Florida was another school that got in on him late, and I think some schools knocked him. Look, Rusty Mansell would enjoy those summer buffets too on those OVs. I can promise you that. But
sure.
I think Caden put on about 25. Just too much. But his junior tape, and I know this kid. I know his mentality. I know his family. He's going to go up there, and people in SEC will go, "How in the hell did that happen?" Well, that's how it happens. And you get a little nitpicky with guys, and next thing you know, this guy's in the league, and he come out of the Atlanta area.
Well, it's always funny to me when people are like, yeah, he's a 6'2" defensive tackle. I'm like, man, I'm going to be honest with you. I would much rather block a 6'4" guy if I'm a guard or a center than a 6'1" or 6'2" bulldog because it's about leverage.
Yes.
A defensive end, I get it. All right, you want a guy that can knock down some passes? I get it. But when it comes to not only just base walking a guy, but being able to pull and kick a guy, it's a lot easier to kick a big, tall, lanky guy out than it is some guy that looked like he just came out of the mountains in a Lord of the Rings movie.
Rolled out of the
dwarfs
gym.
with a big hammer.
Yeah.
And a suit of armor on.
It's such a different game too. Now, can you win one-on-ones inside? You know what I mean? Like, can you be a pass rusher and a gap controller? And you look at those guys like that, but I will never, if I write a book, that day will be, it's actually crazy. I was standing there, and if Rodney will remember this, he worked out Sheldon Rankins and Grady Jarrett. Guess what?
Dang.
Both of them dudes were first rounders. I mean, Sheldon Rankins was from East Side. He goes to Louisville, and I'm going, and I'm young in the business. I'm thinking, damn, is everybody this good? Like, what's going on?
It's like, man, if he's going to Louisville. Jeez.
I mean, they wouldn't like Rodney didn't think they could play. He's like, they just don't, nobody, Georgia, Alabama, Auburn, nobody offered those guys. And,
well, it's amazing to see. It's amazing to see it work out. It happens literally in every class and every cycle. But what do we got going over there?
Yeah, Rusty, a couple things here. First thing, I love the picture of the second best basketball player ever.
No, don't listen to him,
It's
Rusty.
a great pick.
There's a reason it's up there, Blaine.
Yeah, I'm sure. Let's go to him and Marco, 23053. He wants to know, he says, love the show. He says, do you think Georgia's O-line was snubbed for the second year in a row for the Joe Moore Award? I know some of the decision is subjective, and Michigan has a slight edge with average rushing yards by 0.1. Georgia's O-line, however, has given up less sacks and fewer tackles for loss.
I don't get into all the award stuff, but I can tell you right now, Georgia's offensive line is not getting enough publicity. Because I can tell you right now, if I walk you and that young man that answered that question up and you look at Georgia's offensive line, you would be absolute like, what? Who creates humans like this?
Yeah.
Because Broderick Jones, the left tackle, he looks like a wingman. I mean, this guy's 6'5". I watched him play high school basketball. It was crazy. Amarius Mims, who plays on the right side now, was he 6'7.5"? He carries 300 like 220. Tate Ratledge, 6'7", 335. Oh, by the way, they had an injury. They brought in Devin Willick, who's 6'7", 325 pounds. So when you look at Georgia's O-line, listen, everybody around them gets credit, but I promise you right now, that is the most underrated group. And when you go back and look at this draft and look at these guys, Cedric Van Pant, that center, he's going to be a high-level draft pick. Tate Ratledge is going to be a high-level. Warren McClendon's going to be what's crazy? Warren McClendon is probably their most consistent starter. He's been a 3-year starter. He's probably a third or fourth rounder. The guy behind him at right tackle, Marius Mims, is going to be a first rounder. So you look at what they've got in that room right now. So with O-line, I think Georgia's offensive line, and I think that's the key. As we get into that Ohio State, love to be on with you guys to dig in that game a little bit.
For sure.
Obviously, the concerns with those wide receivers in that back end of Georgia secondary, we could talk an hour on that. But on the flip side, I think Georgia's offensive line against Ohio State front seven is good news for Georgia.
Well, if you're like a linebacker or a safety playing against Georgia, and you just start on one side, and you're like, yeah, I know, you're like, monster. All right, I made it through the offensive line. Oh my God, what is that? And it's Darnell Washington. So like, good luck. It only gets worse. It's like the opposite of those Russian dolls that you take off and they get smaller. Like when you take it, they get bigger. It's like the inverse of that. Go ahead, Rusty.
What they have, and I don't think Brock Bowers gets the credit for this blocking ability because Brock Bowers is he's that guy. But Darnell Washington, when you go, unbalanced, and you they do run a package with Warren McClendon. Then they bring in Amarius Mims, and then they offset Darnell Washington. So you go 6'7", 280, 6'7 and a half, 325, and then probably 6'5", 320 right there on the right side, and they'll motion Brock Bowers. You got to have a lot of ass over there to hold the edge.
Yeah, it's a dinosaur during the Cretaceous period. Oh, good. All right.
You know what I mean? So
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's easy to set the edge when there is no edge.
Look at Harold Perkins. I mean, Georgia did not let Harold Perkins run sideline to sideline because he will flat out beat you. You know what they did? They put 6'7" humans on him.
Ran it right at him. That's what you got to do. That's what you got to do. All right, one more, Blaine.
Let's go to Georgia Jack. We always got to get our Saban Kirby Smart comparison. You know how things work. He says, Kirby Smart has nearly 3 decades left at Georgia. Could you ever see him
30 years
passing Saban as the GOAT when it's all said and done, Rusty?
Kirby Smart will not be coaching at 71. I can 1,000% tell you that.
Sure.
So I promise you on that one. You can check that one off. But in fact, those pictures, man, you see his first press conference. So some of those this week, this dude's been to a presidency. You know what I mean?
That's exactly right. So, that's what it's like. He'll be in the woods hunting with Jimbo.
I think he would probably agree on that. $100 million in the pocket, but man. Listen, Kirby's got a lot left in him. I think Georgia right now is really building a roster sustained to get some stuff done, but to pass Nick Saban and what he's done. Look at what Nick Saban's doing right now in recruiting. I mean, this dude is 71, about to sign the number 1 class in the country. He's flipping 5 stars on signing day Eve. You know what I mean? So this guy's wired different. I mean, I guess I got to start eating oatmeal pie every morning. I guess that's the secret.
Who'd have thought?
You know what I mean? To making it. So I don't know that you want to start putting that kind of thing on Kirby Smart. I will say this: Georgia. This is peak days, man. I don't know how long it'll last. I mean, Kirby Smart's built to recruit, and dude's wired different, like those guys that do this. But the roster they're building defensively, kids trying to go there, facilities, everything else. Georgia, I think Georgia can sustain some winning quite some time.
Mm-hmm. Well, he's turned a place where you can build a massive machine into a massive machine. That's what Georgia is now. Just like Nick built it in Tuscaloosa, he has built one in Athens. And what I say, Rusty, before we let you go is, I think the game has changed so much now, it's going to be very hard to replicate what Nick did. Winning 6 in 12 years, the way he was able to kind of dominate the sport. Now that it's changed with the transfer portal, with kind of what we're seeing in recruiting with NIL, it's going to be a lot harder to have that dynastic run. But Georgia is becoming the alpha in college football. Yeah. They are becoming the bully on the block. And when you look, like you said, you came on here one time, Rusty, and said when Georgia played Alabama under Mark Richt in the SEC championship game, they looked like Alabama did for about the first 44 guys. Now they look like Alabama does for the first 85, and that's what it comes down to.
Yeah. So that was a national championship. Yeah. So 2017, we're standing Phillips Arena that Saturday morning for media day, and Georgia walks in. I'm like, man, they got 15 or 20 big dudes. Alabama walked in, and I was like, holy, this is 85 of them? Like, all 85 look like the freaking Raiders, and now when you go look at Georgia, that's what they're building. And you go back to the first press conference, Kirby Smart said, we got to get big and we got to get long. And you look at Georgia, I hear the term all the time, large humans. When you talk to some of those guys on that staff, they're looking for large humans. And that's where it is, man. You can do all the flash and all that, but you come up, you're talking about playing in the SEC and Graham Mertz. When you come into the SEC, you better be able to deal with those. I'll never forget Jacob Eason at the All-American practices, looking at Derek Brown and all those guys that were 6'6" defensive linemen in practice, and he had that glazed look in his eyes. Yeah. And I walked up and I said, and I was in the huddle. I said, what's up, man? He goes, I've never looked eye to eye with defensive linemen. I said, well, you will the rest of your football days.
Guess what? Yeah. Surprise, surprise, surprise.
Derek Brown just tossing people out there all week long.
Still doing it.
That probably, oh, my God, it's awesome.
He's still doing it. But Rusty, speaking about still doing it, man, you always do a great job when we have you on. Tell everybody where they can find your work, and we couldn't think of anybody better to have on National Signing Day.
And I appreciate it, guys. Dogs 247 all day. Twitter at Mansell 247. Been doing some stuff all week long on just everywhere, but 24/7 sports all day. Dogs 247. Looking forward to some summer golf with you guys. And,
yes.
Getting back down here. We need to go out the night before, hit dinner in Athens and come down. Everybody looked a little rough that morning at the Pollock tournament. I don't know if we were fresh or not, including myself. So we're gonna have to rally it up this year and have dinner before that night.
No, we definitely will. You know us. We've never lost a party. Now, once it gets on the golf course, we'll see how it goes.
I've lost a lot.
As long as I see Pollock running around on that little scooter at some point during the day.
At least we're having a good time.
God.
At least we're having a good time.
I'm on number one green, and I'm like, just don't embarrass yourself. And I pipe a pretty good one. I got my chest bowed out. David Green walks up and absolutely destroys one. I was like, well,
I'm shocked.
Smooth.
I'm not hitting my driver the rest of the day.
Yeah, a quarterback's good at golf.
Hey, Rusty, real quick, I heard Coach Jeff Kaiser retired at Statesboro High School.
He did.
Did they hire a new head coach yet?
Not yet.
Okay.
So I saw Jeff. Statesboro's got a damn dude now. This guy's name's Cam McHale. He is a 2024 DB. You need to know about him. He's a 10-6, 100
Oh, that's
guy.
flying.
Dude can roll now. This dude
Let's
can
go.
out.
Let's bring those championships back to Statesboro, Rusty.
He can hit. So I think the Statesboro job obviously is going to be a really attractive one. And went down about 2 months ago on a tour through Southeast Georgia. So big news in the state of Georgia yesterday. Grayson High School. Everybody knows Grayson High School. Adam Carter stepped down and took the Lowndes job in South Georgia. So the coaching carousel in Georgia will start moving, but that Grayson job, Grayson's got about 75 P5, prospects up there. So that will be an attractive job. But Lowndes is finishing up their 110-yard indoor. Oh, by the way, you moved to Titletown, Valdosta, and I think Adam Carter's going to be a good fit down there.
Yeah, it's always interesting to see the high school coaching carousel. All right, Rusty, appreciate you, my friend.
Thanks, guys.
Hey, YouTube, what's up? Do me a favor. Santa, it's the time of giving, right? Santa Claus is giving presents. Parents are giving presents. You're leaving cookies and milk. Do us a favor at Crandon Company. Go ahead and subscribe. Follow us on all social media platforms. That'd be the best Christmas present ever. Unless you have a car, then I'll take that.